video is really helpful to share with others, and so really appreciate everybody and the work they put into that and welcoming us here. Just really grateful. Grateful for all the cooks and everybody who helped set things up. I know a lot goes into this, so we'll be glad to everyone. I have to say, really happy to see Mount Percy here today, and that's an extra special blessing, and kind of going to be, I guess, part of our segue here. I like to, well, it's funny, I almost have to like backpedal a little bit from the doctoral introduction because our people have so much trauma related to education and the boarding schools, and people hear Dr. Jess, they want to back off right away, especially if you say psychology. They're like, oh my God, analyze me or something, and so I almost have to backpedal from that and talk about where I come from. And you know, I actually went into and this is speaking to the students here today, I went into that education not to try to get a degree or even much less diagnose people, but it was just one place where my spirit lit up. My spirit lit up with the horses, probably more so, but also when I was in school, I liked it. I enjoyed it. And so I just went with that, and I met wonderful people, and I ended up meeting Colette, and here I am. So that's just a quick little side note that if you follow your spirit, wherever your spirit lights up, wherever that might take you, go with it. You know, that's my encouragement, and that's how I got to do the education. I followed relationships and good people and things that were exciting and interesting. And I became the worst, I joke because I said I became the worst psychologist ever because I didn't like to diagnose people. For those who are in mental health, you'll know about it. There's a term called adjustment disorder. And even though a lot of people, when I was in those settings, I could have diagnosed people, but I would just say that adjustment disorder for everybody, because that means they're reacting to something that happened around them. And to me, that's always what's happening. And Madam Percy actually articulated that later when they were getting funding for Horse Spirit Society, and he didn't feel comfortable getting mental health funding that required diagnosis of the kids. Because he said the feeling of it and the implication of it is that there's something wrong with the kid. And we know, or the person, adult, whoever, we know in our teachings, and it just feels better to say if there's something wrong, then we have to look at everything around them and we look at ourselves, and not pointing the finger anywhere else, just saying there's not inherently anything wrong with all of us. Something is off balance. If someone is having, you know, depression or whatever it might be, let's look at what's off balance all around. And so he actually rejected money because it relied on those diagnoses, and I always really respected that, and I guess I practiced it too. That's right. I joke about being a bad psychologist. So, and I actually don't do clinical practice per se anymore. All of our programs, well, I do a little bit. We do groups with people in our sober living lodge, called the Sober Guys. But mostly I work through our college in Newtown, and what we do are horse culture programs. So we really try to move away from the term horse therapy. Actually, like legally, we kind of have to. It's very limiting. You have to talk about diagnosed people and qualified, quote-unquote, qualified people. Whereas horse culture, that's all of us. You know, we all need to reconnect. We all should be connected. We are nature. So that those are our relatives. So that should be for everyone. And there's many ways to do it in terms of funding and whatnot. But as far as, especially even just the language, we talk about our horse culture, we talk about wellness, rather than therapy most of the time. And I'm not dissing therapy in certain situations. That's just right on what's needed. And they got a model sometimes it's right on, spot on. But we like to also leave the possibilities as open as possible. But backing up a little bit, I wanted to tell a little story, because I could talk about programs, and we will talk about programs, but the way in my mind it's just all like variations of good opportunities, the information. More importantly, it's connecting with all of us here, connecting as relatives, and more, even underneath that, the horses are going to work their medicine no matter what. They're going to work their magic. They're going to connect with all of us, however, in their way. And I just know that to be true, and I trust that to be true. So as this plays out, however it's meant to play out, it's good we collaborate, but I also trust that it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. So I was just going to share a little story of how one moment that was really special for me with the horses when that medicine happened with me. There's a lot, but one of my favorite ones is the Bigfoot rides come up a few times to see Tonto and I was pretty little when we started, and Uncle Percy was the young one then. He was like the really young one, and I was a kid, and in 1990 was a really cold year, so riding, getting close to finally riding out in the Badlands, and I was riding this horse named Shota. He's a little bay horse. He was the first horse I really started. He was an orphan, so he was really tame, and I could ride him easily, but he's kind of goofy because he was an orphan. But anyway, he was a special little horse, and I rode him the whole way. It was a big deal. Long way. I was probably 13. And in the Badlands, there came a point where, and I don't think it's ever happened, maybe one other time, but it came a point where literally visceral, he was talking about deep instinctual survival mechanism popped up and said, you might die. It wasn't a thought, I didn't think about it. I looked around and said, the temperature, and miles. It was just a moment of my body said, you're at risk for dying. And then it was just a feeling. And then the next instant, as soon as my brain kicked in, I said, I still touch me. The moment my brain kicked back in, it said, you won't die because of this horse. So, it was a really special moment, and I count that as a blessing, because it's like a little tiny glimpse of what they had on their face or lives because of the horses and because of Buffalo. That's how close they were, you know? And so people were like, oh, it's so cold to ride and suffering, but to me that was a blessing to be able to have that moment. And then I also remember that because of course he would ride in the back. He was leading from the back, and he wouldn't leave me late in the snow. So also he wouldn't let me die. But anyway, it was just a special moment, and we could talk, all of us, for days, but those horses are going to find those special moments and touch us all in different ways, and that's something that, I'm thankful for, to be part of this generation, as far as call to action and what we try to do now. So having all that experience with the ride, now these days I've come to a place where I don't want to say to my kids and all the other ones, okay, well, you got to all go on the ride now. I did for a while, I thought that. And then I realized all of the teachings we got to learn about the seventh generation, because there was teaching from Black Elk about the generations. This is going to happen, there's a flow, there's a cycle, there's a circle to it. And then this is going to happen. It's a spiritual movement that you're a part of. And you guys are the seventh generation. This was going to happen, and I had to kind of, at some point I realized, these guys are the next, eighth generation. I can't be trying to make them do what we did. So myself, I've got to challenge myself now to be open to hear guidance spiritually, hear from the youth, hear from the horses, try to listen to what is the next generation going to be, and be humble enough to be guided by them. Also, more work-wise, a little bit more practical, I guess, is we do a lot of programming in North Dakota. I'm at the Druid at Sonish College. Again, I worked for the tribe there for a while, and I went back to college. And we're funded all by our USDA grants. So every college that has land grants, whatever you're doing with the money could be used for the programs. So that's kind of one of my soapboxes, is that that's always there for most tribes that have land. So we have outreach, which I'm the kind of outreach person for the more rural communities. So we do everything from birthday parties, divorces, to Halloween, whatever, to lessons. That's one of my things, is to try to do regular contact, regular relationship building with the kids and the horses. Whether it's once a week or every couple of weeks, try to keep it going as much as we can throughout the year. So lessons, to events, to Monte Luce Rodeo Committee somehow, don't ask me how, but we do a wide variety of outreach. We do work with sobriety groups, sober guys, really relying on relationship and trying to be trauma informed. And of course we have the college program, so we have an equine studies degree program at the college there. And it's really young, we're trying to still, develop it as best we can. But it's pretty cool that you can get a degree in horses agriculture. It's pretty cool development. So we're excited about that. One of my, things that I feel strongly about is we've talked about how there's an unnecessary separation between mental and physical health and spiritual health, and that's separated, right, in Washington world. So you go over here, if you got a broken leg, you go over here, if you want to pray, you go over here. You need to eat better food. Mental, physical, emotional, those things are separate. Mental health is over there somewhere in a scary office. Those things don't need to be separated. In our way, those things are not separated. And the horses bring all of that together right there. And that's one of the beautiful things. So that's one of the things is to bring those divisions down where they don't need to be, especially within education. So our ag program does horse programs. I was joking about being the only psychologist, PhD, doing an ag program, but of course in our way that makes perfect sense. The horses are mental health, the gardens are mental health, the buffaloes are mental health. It's all together. It's all the same. And then so similarly, as far as programs and funding, I guess one little message that I have is we already have so much resources. Marty's talked about abundance. We got programs learning everywhere. What are their goals? They're like physical health, mental health, emotional wellness. Horses address all of those things. So there could be horses in the diabetes program. Horse doctors in all the schools as you guys do so well already. There could be horses, at the clinic. The VA, that horse program, all the funding that's already there, the horses could be built into all of that easily. And they're everywhere. The horses are here. There's people here who have, here meaning our tribes, our lands. I always thought it would be cool to just have a simple program of reaching out to those horse people and say, hey, if you invite some kids from the housing over to ride your horses, we'll give you some hay. How simple is that? We'll help you out if you open your corrals. And of course, make sure it's a sober, healthy environment and support. But yeah, I do see that there's so many programs already operating where the horses are just be a part of it, rather than having it separate. Like here's nutrition and here's social service, and then the horse program is there. Might be a lot more difficult, or not as easy done as said, am I saying right? More easier said than done. But you know what? I'm optimistic. Big Warrior over there. He was Big Warrior. You can't watch Nancy with Wolves. He's the character Big Warrior. He took that hat from Kevin Costner. And he said you left it on the prairie. That's him right there. My Uncle Percy. Mother Mascot.
My question is, some of the discussion was supposed to be on funding, how we're going to get funding for the program that we have. Is there funding out there to fund horse riding programs, or do you have to be like a very therapeutic type of program in order to receive those funding? Because the therapeutic part is good, but also the other part of writing. I know someone mentioned Igala. I got level 2 certification in the Igala. That's as far as I got, because in equine therapy there's no writing. Only like 5% of it. The rest of it is all learning about the horse, natural horsemanship, teaching about the horse, riding, safety, all this. That's what our children want. They want to get on a horse and ride. They don't want to be leading it around and showing them whatever. So is there funding out there for that type of program? Or is it just for therapy type of program? And another question I have while I'm studying here is there roadblocks in a therapeutic program that causes more harm than good?
So part of the question was about funding, and I think, there's just a matter of how you apply and what angle you take, and that's the beautiful part is that it's shifting. Like before, if we went to the USDA and said, hey, we're going to do a ride up there called Honoring the Bottomlands. It has to do specifically to this tribe, just a cultural practice, pretty much with horses. They might have laughed us off, but now they're like, yes, thank you. We love that you're doing that. Just doing it. So I think any funding that talks about wellness in any sort of way, we could fold the horses right into that. Should be able to fold right into that. We're all here to keep moving that in that direction. And it's not even just horses that are our passion, my passion, my spirit, but the same is true for gardening, for singing, for all of our cultural practices. Like reclaiming that and saying, this is how we do wellness. If you want natives to be better, supposedly, fund this stuff. And they're starting to. They are starting to do that. They are starting to do that. But we have to keep pushing it. As far as the therapy part, I think it's all therapy. I love that what he said about even just standing downwind and smelling them. It sounds funny, but sometimes just being out there, just walking, it's all therapy in my mind, and that's how I think about it. But I feel like I've been talking too long, so does anybody else want to address some of the questions? Open up.
I wanted to acknowledge Jessica and thank her for her presentation and also her humbleness. I was very proud to introduce you as Dr. White Plume. And in recognition of credentials and expertise in the family, what we've been hearing about from each of our presenters here is a body of works that really encapsulated us as a community, following the teachings of the Deo Yate economy, and that we all have a role to play. And for students here, go get your PhD. Keep rolling. If all you want to do is ride a horse or plant a garden, do that. We all have an opportunity to be community contributors. I really appreciated what Chairman Linkey had to say about how he had to stand up and push back naysayers. A big part of this panel, and I hope what you're gleaning from it, is a call to action, and I appreciate your question, because there's room to grow in all of this. And the call to action here, and I hope students that you've been energized to ask people at your school, why not? Why don't we have horses here? Why don't we have a lodge in our campus? Why don't we have an equine therapy program, an academic program, more than they are? So it's good to ask those questions, and funding is a very important part of that, so thank you for interjecting that. I did want to recognize Jeff Taylor, if you want to stand up, please, and wave. Jeff rode on his pony and his son all the way from Manitoba, from Sioux Valley. So Jeff Taylor and your son, thank you for making the trip. You now can put names to faces, and I'm sure that Marlise and her staff have a connection to everyone here as you work to grow your program. And if you would like to come up, I know we're a little behind schedule before Marlise comes up with her staff, but if you could come up and maybe introduce yourself, and then as we're building the network and relationships here, you can express a need that you might have that one of the relatives here can offer.
As mentioned before, my name is Jeff Taylor. I come from Oklahoma, which is Sioux Valley, Manitoba, Canada. Real briefly here, I was a little bit background about myself. I've been involved as a child welfare for off and on about 10, 12 years. I've been involved with the correctional system as well as a guard, correctional guard for about 5 years. So I've seen a lot of different aspects as to some of the difficulties that people are going through. When I sat back and I looked at the world today, and the world that I grew up in, is two different worlds. I remember my God one time telling me, he said, there's going to come a time, he said, you are going to live in two different worlds. I never knew what that meant. I didn't know what he was meaning by that. I didn't understand that, being so young. But as time went on, as I got older, I started to understand what these gentlemen up here were saying, and what the doctor was saying here is generational things happen. The time changes, the world changes. The problems that we had 30, 40, 50 years ago are different today. I look back at my community when I was a young person, a teenager, and the biggest thing was maybe alcohol, maybe marijuana. Today our community is filled with gangs, meth, epidemic up there too, relatives, again, killing one another, loss of connection. I spoke about that with the crowd very briefly at one time. I said, where did we go wrong? And I don't know where we went wrong, but I think it's just a matter of where did we lose connection. There was a brief moment earlier where somebody, it was that Chief John held up a cell phone on the World Wide Web. That plays a big role in connecting. We have such technology today that where we can be connected to one another through video, through audio, whichever way connections that are needed, or not the connections that our young people are needed. We're needing them to get back to the land, to get back to the connection with the animals, and those types of things. Not to take too much of your time, but while I was working alongside some of the students at our school back home, there was a few students who would generally get sent home every day at the same time. So before it happened again, I took two of those young boys up to one of our relatives who had horses. And the temperament in this child changed almost totally opposite. Went from throwing chairs around in the classroom, yelling and screaming, to being very calm. It led me to continue to do this for a few more weeks throughout the summer. And through technology and social media, I've seen what the lady was doing down here in Rapid City with some of our Southern relatives. I get a lot of inspiration from what he does. So where I work is within the city of Brandon as well, with some of our residents. So I did take the opportunity to come down here when I saw this posted, in hopes that I get some ideas, some more understanding, some more avenues as a way to help our relatives who are suffering. But I think right across the board, it does come down to being connected. We've lost connection. We've lost connection with the world outside, and lost connection within our family system as well. So much to the point where we're doing it to ourselves, we heard that said today. We've become the oppressor. At one time, parents would take the time to be there to their children, to care for their child, to offer them those words of comfort, maybe a hug. Today I see young families and young parents, with no fault of their own, say, turn that off, I'll take it away. Go to bed, I'll take it away. We are now living in a world where the parents, we are threatening our own children. That's not right. So we need to find ways to fix that. Our parents should be there to love and nurture their children, not threaten them. There shouldn't be any threats happening inside the homes of our most precious people. Well, with that being said, I thank you for your time. I thank you for putting this on today. The horse is a very important relative to us. And I think the sooner we get back to that and understanding